This is Saskia, and this is Note to Self, your weekly dose of everything that's simply too long to text. Consider this your personal invitation into my inner circle, where I share my thoughts, feelings, and quiet reflections that usually live inside my Notes app. Thanks for joining me. This week, I've been thinking about the dreams we have as children and what happens when we stop listening to them. A medical intuitive reading brought me face to face with my 8-year-old self and the words, "You've abandoned the dream." Then, Charli xcx new album, Music, Fashion, and Film, brought me back to the same question from a completely different direction. What are we creating? Who are we becoming? And what actually makes us feel alive? Maybe we don't need to have it all figured out. Maybe we just need to keep returning to the things that feel the most true. Hi, it's me, Saskia, and this is Note to Self. Now, before I dive into things today, I wanted to share a recent update on something I did when I was in upstate New York last week. As you all know, I was upstate, did a whole episode on it, bloody loved it, struggled to be back in the city, questioning everything in my life. As always, welcome to this podcast. You know, we are always existential here and we don't have the answers, but we're figuring it out, right? Anyways, when I was upstate, to give some context, I have been seeing a naturopath. I started seeing her when I was in Sydney. So for many years, to help with some of my health issues, when I first moved back to Australia, I started seeing her mainly to work on my gut health at the time. And I was having a lot of histamine responses. And I have seen my symptoms significantly improve over my time working with her. And I just feel like really good in my body in terms of my health, which has been really awesome. So that's not what we're talking about today. But if you're interested in learning more about my naturopath journey, I'm happy to do an episode on it. Just message me and let me know. But my naturopath did recently start offering a new type of session, and it's called a medical intuitive reading. My practitioner describes these as 90-minute online sessions designed to explore the energetic layers connected to health concerns or symptoms and to gain insight into potential emotional, energetic, and subconscious influences that may be connected to some of the physical symptoms or patterns. She describes medical intuitive reading as a process of tuning into the body's energetic patterns and exploring the messages that the body may be communicating. The intention is really to offer another perspective on areas where there may be energetic imbalances, unresolved patterns, or insights that could support greater awareness and alignment. So these sessions, she combines intuitive energetic insights, spiritual wisdom, and shamanic practitioner training with her naturopathic knowledge and a holistic understanding of the body. And keep in mind, these are separate to her naturopath sessions, so she offers both of these now. And a quick note before I share this, medical intuitive readings are a spiritual wellness practice. They're not a medical diagnosis or treatment. I go to the doctors for that. I'm just sharing kind of my personal experience and really what this session brought up for me. I really believe in that kind of sentiment as, you know, the famous book, The Body Keeps the Score. And I do find that a lot of medical things I've had over the years tend to have an emotional pull to them as well. And there's usually something there. So I have found it to be very powerful and helpful with certain things. Now, I'll talk about my reading. So on the day of the reading, it was very weird. I developed this sudden kind of stabbing pain in my stomach while I was having dinner. And I took that as my body saying, this is what you're going to bring in today. It didn't make any sense why my stomach was all of a sudden stabbing. I haven't had pain like that in a really long time. And it is not something that was common. And again, I felt like my body was telling me something. So when I joined the session, she had asked me what I wanted to focus on. And I said, my gut. So she guided me into a meditative state and asked me to focus on that area of my body. And while I did that, she tuned in to what she felt was coming from that space. So we came out of this meditative state. I think we were in it for maybe 10 minutes. And she shared with me some messages that she received. And she saw me as a young girl, around 8 years old. And the words she said to me were, "You've abandoned the dream." And I burst into tears. I literally didn't even know that those words would trigger something like that in me. It just cracked something open and I just was bawling. So we kind of dove into this further. And the practice we did next is a type of somatic therapy, which I had done somatic therapy for many years prior to this session. So I immediately knew what we were kind of doing here. And for those who don't know somatic therapy, it's a body-centered form of psychotherapy that connects physical sensations to emotional healing. And it very much focuses on the belief that your body carries emotional trauma. And that, again, the body keeps the score. If you're interested, you should read that book. Although I don't know if that book's completely related to somatic therapy, but it's all the kind of same understanding. And in my somatic therapy sessions, they're often very meditative. So anyways, so she put me into this, she walks me through this meditative state. So you're guided by your practitioner. And I had to breathe into my stomach, focusing on that area, and kind of visit that area where the physical pain was and identify what emotions or feelings come up. And the biggest takeaway I've learned from this work is not to question anything. The first thing that comes to your mind, just go with that and verbalize it. I think so often I would try and intellectualize what I was seeing or what I was feeling. And I'm like, okay, the first thing I feel, just say it. And sometimes I'd be like, I don't even think this makes any sense, but this is what I'm seeing or this is what I'm feeling. And inevitably it would lead to something that was making sense. So the kind of feeling, or rather what I was seeing, was a young girl who was in the background. She was far away. I think foreground is close. She was far away. And she was in this landscape that I have seen ever since I was a little kid. And I still, even now, when I get overwhelmed, my eyes are closed, it comes up behind my eyes. And I kind of describe it as this reoccurring nightmare, because as a child, it began as a nightmare. And I'm in this desert-like landscape. It looks so much like the Salvador Dali painting with the melting clock. It's called The Persistence of Memory. So if you Google that, that's seriously exactly what it looks like. And I could see myself in this dream. But like I said, I was really far away in the middle of this desert with my head down, kind of leaning on my arms. And it looked like I was crying. And my my practitioner helped me guide myself through this process by suggesting, do you want to try and get closer to her? Does she feel okay with you doing that? And she was okay with that. So I approached her more. And as I approached her, she still wouldn't look at me. And I felt that she wanted me to hug her. So I give her a hug and she kind of falls into me and starts crying and puts her arms down. She was saying, where have you been? And as I'm going through this, my practitioner, like I said, is asking me questions that I answer, and she kind of helps guide you through this experience. And the next thing was that I felt this younger person, who I discovered was the younger version of me, did not want to stay in this place. She did not want to be here. And I had to ask her where she wanted to go. And she said she wanted to go home, to our home in the Daintree, which is in far north Queensland. It's the place that I lived and where I was born. I lived there until I was 5. So we went back to that house and straight to my playroom, and she was playing. And I could just feel like she was so happy to be in this home. And what was really interesting, I don't know. I'm trying not to use the word interesting because I use it all the time. But what was really interesting is when we got to the house, my grandmother was there. And my grandmother passed away in 2016. And I was very, very close with her. She was a very spiritual woman. And seeing her in this space, it felt very different to other sessions like this I've had before. it didn't feel like it was subconscious. It felt like she was in my subconscious. And this is when I get so woo-woo, but I really felt like she was visiting me from wherever she is. And it was her like spirit visiting me. And I started to talk to her and ask her, how has she been? And she said she's been good. And she was sharing how she was like, I am so proud of you. I'm always with you, never feel like I'm not with you. And then she said to me, I know you're missing your home so much. This missing of my home, this Daintree home that I have missed ever since, I clearly missed ever since I was a child. And it's been coming a lot up in therapy. She was like, that home is always with you. It's always in your heart. And that can never be taken away from you. You don't need the physical manifestation of this home because it is always living with you. And I carry that memory. And as this kind of conversation's happening, I'm telling my practitioner what's happening. I'm bawling with my eyes closed, just tears streaming down my face. And we kind of were getting ready to leave the session and having to say goodbye to the 8-year-old version of myself and telling her I'll be back and kind of checking if she was okay that I was leaving. And my grandmother said, it's fine to go. I'm going to stay with her. And I said goodbye to them and kind of came back into the space, opened my eyes. And my practitioner was kind of talking me through, what just happened and kind of the takeaways. And I was just feeling really far away. Like it was like, because we were on Zoom, the laptop was here, but imagine it was 10 feet away. It was like when I couldn't like grab it almost, and everything felt really far away in the room. It was like everything was getting bigger and I was getting really small. And I had to interrupt her and I was like, I feel really far away right now. Like I can't process where I am. And in that moment, she felt that there's likely a part of me that was still left in where I was because I didn't want to leave my grandmother. I really didn't want to go. And I felt that I did not want to go. And we had to do some kind of physical exercises to get me back into my body. It was breath work and kind of like shaking. And we said like, I guess you could say a mantra to like bring my energy back to my body. And after we did that, it was kind of wild. Within a minute, it was like I dropped in. I felt myself land almost, and computer back in my foreground. Everything was a normal size. I was like, whoa, that happened really fast. And that just physical response just makes it feel incredibly real to me, this whole process. But ultimately, the message here was that my 8-year-old self has felt abandoned because I've not been living the dream that I said I would be doing. And this is not just, this type of work is really inner child work, and that spans across all different types of practices, from traditional therapy to something like this. And essentially, the takeaway for me is to continue reconnecting with this version of myself. And by doing that, you are, going to process the different trauma and emotions that are there and, rebuilding that relationship. So really, my work right now is to continue going back to that place where I've left her, my home, every week. And I check in with her. I ask her what she needs, spend, maybe it's like 5-10 minute meditation where I spend some time with her and just rebuilding the connection and telling her to, trust me, that I'm working to make the dream come true, and she can just play and not have to do all the adult things that she doesn't want to do and just be in her world. And also to do things that light her up. So I think being upstate and dancing in the grass was a perfect thing, and being in nature, it really fed her little soul. So it was a really beautiful and really powerful reading. It also happened on the full moon, so there was a lot of energy. And I love this type of work because I just see so many crossovers with what I'm doing in my own therapy, and really just generally feelings I've been having in my life over this past year. And you really start to see how all these pieces add up. Because this year I have been especially feeling very unsettled, and when it comes to kind of asking these big questions about my life. And I've spoken about this on the podcast, where I want to live, what do I want to do? I keep coming back to the fact that I've spent a lot of my life trying to be able to work as a creative and really struggling being able to do that. And as a child, all I wanted to do was be an actor. And I let that dream go after high school to study journalism. And then it changed shape again into fashion. When I moved to New York, I worked in like fashion adjacent tech businesses, but the creative part of me still felt like it was missing. Eventually, I went back to acting, and I spent years in film and television classes and intensives, and I got an agent, and then I started booking small parts, and then COVID happened. And I moved back to Australia, continued acting, but eventually stepped away again. After that, I got a new job, and for the first time in a long time, I found stability. I could travel, just breathe, and begin asking what I wanted next. But the creative part of me was always there. And it was last year, while trying to figure out what I wanted to do next creatively, that I started this podcast. And of everything I have done, this has felt the most soul aligning. It makes me feel so alive. I love every element of it. It is exhausting some weeks, I'm not going to lie, because when you are working a full-time job and still trying to find time to do your podcast, it is a lot. You don't have a lot of downtime, but it brings me so much joy. You have no idea. You have no idea. I love it so much. Oh my God. And I just want it to keep growing into a bigger part of my life. Oh my God. It's going to make me emotional just because I just really love doing this. And I'm just so thankful to the people who listen. So really, back to the reading, it's no wonder the 8-year-old version of myself feels kind of abandoned in this, because I think part of the work is I need to continue to build the life that I want and to reconnect with this version of myself and to remind her that I am working towards our dream. I've not let it go. Because the message here isn't for me to be an actor. It's for me to be a storyteller and a creative. And I've known that since I was a young girl, and I keep reminding myself that I am doing the work, even if it's not my full-time work. And I'm putting stuff out there every week with this podcast. So if you're interested in this type of reading, please comment on the podcast or send me a message on Instagram, and I can put you in touch with my practitioner who's offering these services. I highly recommend it if you're interested in this type of deep work, and I found it incredibly healing. And it's really, I'll be interested to see how it continues to kind of develop over the next few months. I got so much out of it, and I would say it's definitely one of the strongest readings I've ever had. I mean, seeing my grandmother was wild. It was really crazy. And it's, even now I'm having like a download that I think it kind of almost helps with this feeling I've been having about pre-grieving. And almost in a way it was like, oh, they're always there, And I know that in my heart, but I had this experience of really feeling like they're always there, and maybe I can visit her more than I realized. It's very woo-woo, but you girls know that I'm a bit woo-woo, so here we are. Now, coming back to the podcast, as I mentioned, I just want to say again, thank you for helping me build Note to Self. As I said, this is my dream, and I've never felt more alive doing it. And my goal right now is to reach 1,000 YouTube subscribers. We're currently at 137, so we have a while to go, but hopefully not a while. We have a way to go. And when we reach 1,000, I have decided, drumroll, I will host my first Note to Self meetup in New York. Oh my God. It says, as a thank you to everyone for helping to build this. How exciting, so fun. Meet up with a group of Note to Self listeners in New York City. If you live here, great. If you don't, we'll figure something out. But for now, help me get there and send Note to Self to your group chats, post it on social media, talk about it at work. Hell, why not share it in the company or Slack channel? At here, follow Note to Self. I don't care, do it. But yes, help me find the first 1,000 subscribers, and we will celebrate in New York City as we do best. So thank you. Now, Continuing our conversation about creative pursuits, my pop culture pick of the week is Charli xcx's new album, Music, Fashion, Film. And when I think about it, this album really found me at the exactly perfect time. My 8-year-old self has been asking where the dream went, while Charli is asking what the dream means when you actually get it. When I first listened to Music, Fashion, Film, I was like, okay, this is interesting. Not my fave Charli album. Second listen, wait, no, I actually like this. And my third listen, okay, this is amazing. And this album is looking at something really profound. I had fallen more and more in love with this album the more I listened to it. As I wrote this review, I fell more in love with the album. It is so incredibly well done, and the messages are so important. And look, the album doesn't provide answers. It asks a lot of questions. Charli, a woman the same age as me, questioning her life, her relationship with art, the line between performance and herself, the influence of fame, her role as a wife, and really, what is this all for? And ultimately, that is what artists are here to do. They are here to share art that represents themselves, especially pop stars. Pitchfork's Anna Gaza, I think is how you say her last name. She made this distinction between actors and pop stars. I thought it was very interesting. I think that's as clear a distinction as you could make between an actor's job and the pop stars, representing a version of someone else versus representing a version of themselves. I think that is just, I've never thought about it that way. And for so long I wanted to be an actor where of course you're representing someone else, but I always felt like you carried a bit of yourself into that, which is true. Acting can be very therapeutic in the ways that you can kind of express your emotions through a character. But really pop stars, they are totally representing themselves. And I think that must be incredibly scary at times because you're really putting yourself out there in the most raw version possible. And that's what Music, Fashion, and Film felt like. It felt like it was Charli unplugged. I mean, all her music is very personal, but there was something really, I wouldn't say unfinished, but raw about it. And after the huge success of Brat, it felt like she kind of just stripped it all back to show us the difficult questions that she's been asking herself. Take, for instance, Wink Wink. Charli spoke about how this song reflects on past relationships and the pressure she felt to be someone that the men she dated always wanted her to be. She often felt misunderstood by partners until she met George Daniel, her now husband, who finally got her. I mean, what woman cannot relate to this? I feel like I morphed myself into so many versions of myself prior to meeting Jeffrey. And with Jeffrey, I never had to pretend. I felt this ease that I had never felt before, and I could always just be unapologetically myself. We then moved to I'm Afraid, which brings a whole new path of fear, the fear that she will ruin the love that she's found with George. You finally find the person who understands you, but what if you fuck it all up? And these juxtapositions she calls out. I'm a wife, I'm a kid. I'm destroyed, I'm a bitch. I'm a drunk, I can't sleep, I can't feel, I'm afraid. We are told we can only be one thing. And we're often only shown that we can be one thing. I think being a wife carries a certain pressure to it. This idea you have to have it all figured out. You're entering this new phase of your life. I'm a wife, I'm a kid. I feel that so viscerally. I'm getting married next year, and I've felt this pressure to almost need to settle down. And a part of me wants that. A part of me wants to start a family. I don't even like to describe that as settling down, but for the premise of this, I will. But the other part of me feels like a kid who wants to explore the world, who can't figure out who she wants to be or where she wants to be. Jeffrey and I are discussing putting everything in a storage unit after we get married and just living abroad in different places for a few months at a time. Yet I just have this immense pressure that I need to have it all figured out. And I think that's why I loved music, fashion, film, because the album inherently doesn't have it figured out. But there is one question Charli has answered on her album, and it's the reason she keeps creating art. Charli referenced a Bill Cunningham documentary as one of the films that inspired her album. I quote, "This is a guy who just loved taking photos. He just wanted to do it. And I think that has been something that has really inspired me throughout making my record. It's like, why do I want to do the things I want to do? I want to do them because I love them, because they bring me so much joy. They make me feel alive. They're the things I care about." And isn't that what life's about? Doing the things that bring you joy, pursuing what makes you feel alive. I feel like Charli is challenging us to do the same, because even someone as successful as Miss Charli xcx doesn't have it all figured out, but she keeps coming back to art and putting herself out there. And clearly the world is responding. The final song on the album, No One Lasts Forever, ends with words of guidance from filmmaker and horror auteur David Cronenberg. In the song, Cronenberg recounts lying on a sidewalk and reflecting on mortality. He says, "As I was laying there on the sidewalk, I did not think about art at all. I thought about people. I thought about life, and that's why I like being so close to my house. Somehow that was comforting, even though it makes no sense, you know? But no, I wasn't thinking about art, and I wasn't thinking about art as endurance, as immortality. I mean, we could talk about immortal artists of various kinds, and it can turn out that yes, some artists have created art that has really survived thousands of years, and that's fantastic. But experientially, for them, they are dead. They are gone. They are not experiencing that." Cronenberg ends his part by saying, "Hear me assuring you that oblivion is freedom. They are dead. They are gone. No one lasts forever." I think what he is trying to say, and what Charli is trying to tell us, is that we spend so much time evaluating ourselves, scared to put ourselves out there, scared to live. But ultimately, as Cronenberg says, no one lasts forever. There's freedom in that to me. What matters the most are the people in your life. The art you choose to share should feel like freedom. It won't last forever, so try new things. Keep reinventing yourself. Don't feel the need to define who you are. And in an album that looks so closely at the roles Charli has played and the way she has been defined, this final song really felt like a song that was giving her and everyone listening the permission to create without boundaries. As the lyrics say, "That's why I'm not scared of anyone, because nothing's going to last forever. But you need to discover that feeling of the crushing highs and lows of ego, where one minute you're the worst and the next minute you know you're better." As always, Charli gives us so much to think about and really sets us all free. I highly encourage people to go listen to this album and do it a few times, because the message gets clearer to me every single song. Even as I was sitting here evaluating this album, I thought of another song on it called Card Declined and what it means, and this idea of defining yourself. And I feel like this song again is a message of defining yourself through the things you own. And at first when I listened to it, I thought, you can't buy a personality in a way, because she says, you know, a personality, but I also think a vibe, who you are. Like, buying these things doesn't define your kind of aura, but it also doesn't define who you are. And none of it really fucking matters, to be honest. And again, it ties back to this message of what really matters and how we define ourselves. And I hadn't even realized that until right this very second. So my point is, keep listening to it, because more and more messages will arise. But as we wrap up today, I keep coming back to those words, "You've abandoned the dream." My 8-year-old self was not asking me to become the exact person I imagined at 8. She was asking me to remember what the dream represented. And my dream was never only about becoming an actor. It was about telling stories. It was about making things, moving people, and feeling fully alive inside my life. The dream didn't disappear. It has just simply changed shape many times, which I think is part of life. And that's what I hear in music, fashion, film. Charli doesn't give us a neat answer about art or marriage or identity or what comes after success. She just keeps creating from inside the uncertainty. And when David Cronenberg says that no one lasts forever, I don't hear that as bleak. I hear it as freedom. I hear permission. If no one of us lasts forever, then maybe we don't have to wait until we're perfectly formed, perfectly confident, or completely certain on what we want to do before we begin. We can make something because we love making it. We can change our minds. We can reinvent ourselves. We can stop trying to turn every creative impulse into proof that we have finally figured out who we are. The best creative pursuits lie in the imperfection. Note to self is part of my reinvention and part of me returning to that dream. Every week I sit down and I tell a story. Every person who listens or shares it and sees themselves in something I say reminds me that I have not abandoned my younger self. Maybe I lost touch with her for a while. Sorry, little me, Saskia. But I'm here now, and the dream is still here. Just looks a little different from the version we imagined. And look, hey, your girl may still pursue acting one day. We will see where the world takes me. Just like Charli in camera, who's questioning her, want to be on camera as well. I understand it, girl. The camera makes me feel alive too. So for those watching on camera, you'll see me light up to the camera. Anyways, my note to self this week: I do not need to have the whole dream figured out before I start living it. Starting this podcast is a true example of that. I think I just need to keep creating art and remembering the things that are important, the people I love, the things that bring me joy, and the experiences that make me feel alive. I need to stop defining it and just living it. Anyways, guys, lots of messages here this week. Go listen to the album, and I will speak to you next week. Thanks so much. Bye.